3, 2, 1, and we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Stay Curious podcast. How's it going? I haven't put out a show in a little bit, but I am back, and I am excited to be here and share with you guys a little bit of a recap. I think we're going to do a solo show today. I don't think we the collective, i.e. me, is going to do a solo show today. Kind of a recap of the year that I've had. My birthday was yesterday, my 33rd birthday. Oh my God. So I'm even closer to being an adult now, whatever in the hell that means. But I do think that it's important to reflect back and take a look at what you've done so you can have a better idea of what you want to do moving forward. So that's the idea. So here we go. It's kind of the elephant in the room. It's one of my newest additions to the Stay Curious studio. Just here to my right, for those of you watching on video, I have a very nice LED lit on-air sign. My wonderful mom got this for me for my birthday this year, yesterday. So it's a pretty cool addition. It was a very thoughtful gift. She just wanted to add to the podcasting experience, and as you can see, this is amazing. This is a whole new podcast now. Only for the viewers, though, not for the listeners. It's the same exact thing. But nonetheless, I'm pretty pumped on it. So there it is, my on-air sign. So I know for sure that when I press the record button, this is going to be going out to the world via the internets. So on-air sign. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted to recap kind of what did I do with 32. I've decided to entitle the show, at least for now. We'll see if that sticks. But again, look back at kind of how this past year of life has gone for me and share with you guys, not to put it into corporate lingo, but some wins, some opportunities, as they say in the biz. But maybe you guys will find it interesting. Maybe you will just think, yeah, Kellin didn't really do any of that cool shit, but maybe that's useful for me to sit down and recap what I've done and really reflect on it and can better inform my decisions moving forward. So maybe that's the goal of this show. But nonetheless, I actually had to make notes here. So for those of you watching and listening, but more so watching, I'm going to have my phone pulled up with my notes because it's fucking hard to remember an entire year and all the highs and the lows and the in-betweens. And I just sat down and brainstormed for 30 minutes. So, Skynet, if you're up there, apologize for missing any details that I didn't recap here. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. I kind of have separated these into different buckets, but I'm going to just go through them as fluidly as I can, kind of starting with the oldest and then moving forward. But let's be serious, I'll be jumping all over the place. So last year, December 9th, also my birthday, weird coincidence, I was working for Zoom Performance at the time, and we actually got the news on my birthday that Zoom Care would be shutting down the performance service, which for you old school listeners, you probably are familiar. For those of you who don't know what the fuck that means, Zoom had a service that essentially looked to optimize human performance, to borrow a phrase from the company on it. Not a sponsor, but could be someday soon, right on it. They look to optimize human performance essentially by doing this very deep dive wellness exam and then using that data and that testing results to check in every so often. Essentially, take you when you weren't sick, down and out. Just take you as is, get a good baseline information, and then work with you to build a plan on how you can get even fucking better. So I was pretty jazzed on it. Nonetheless, on my birthday last year, got the news, had to shut it down. Pretty big bummer. But, it's a business. And even if it's the best idea in the world, if it doesn't make business sense, it's not the right timing, then it's just not. It doesn't work out. So I had to reconcile that. So I was processing that. Some interesting things came up with that to kind of bleed over into a different area, more of my from career to personal, because, again, it's all interwoven, but we like to try and make sense of things as humans. So we like to compartmentalize and put things into little buckets so it's easier to understand. But like in working through that news about the Zoom performance, at that point, like my alternative of what I had to do, didn't really sign up for essentially. So I had to start thinking about, I need to start looking for other positions, other teams, which was a bummer in several ways. One, because the team I was working with was amazing. They still are. Those people that are at Zoom or other places. And as those of you who have ever been on an amazing team and really worked hard to get good chemistry and just really good cohesion. It's tough. It's bittersweet to think about having to move onward to another team, but again, sometimes that's necessary. So I was processing through having to look for another job, which, again, for anyone who's ever had to do that, which is everybody, it's a pain in the fucking ass for the most part. Unless you are just very well connected or work your ass off to be very well connected, and people it's a quick fit, then maybe it's not so painful. But otherwise, it takes a lot of time and effort and research and disappointment and perseverance to work through the different things out there, and really that, and also just ask yourself, well, what do I really want to be doing? So that's all a segue to say that I had about a 6-month job search period that I was working through after I got the news, and that was, again, it was tough. It was tough because it just takes a lot of effort. Like most people probably, I also don't deal with disappointment that well. So, having to develop a thicker skin when you're continuing to apply and to different places and cast your line out there, to use a fishing cliche, and not quite catching anything. So, it just takes time, and you just have to keep your chin up and keep moving forward and hoping for the best. And eventually, I did find something. I found something great. I don't know if surely I've mentioned this on the show before, but about 3 months ago, I took a role with Airbnb, the home sharing service based out of San Francisco. But I still work here in Portland. They have an office here in Portland that does a few different major things, but one of them being a lot of their customer support team is here in Portland. And that's what I do now. I've joined that team, and I work with people all over the world, actually, to help solve issues when they come up with Airbnb. So that's pretty cool, and Airbnb is an amazing company to work for. I really am really happy to be a part of it and experience a whole new culture and a whole new team of people, kind of like I just mentioned. That takes time and effort in its own right, but it's still always cool to meet new people and experience new things. Hence the whole point of this show is to continue to learn and develop and grow. So I've found a place where I can do that, and I've been doing that from a cultural standpoint, from a people standpoint, just from a sheer like work standpoint, kind of trying something slightly different in a different manner through customer support. So yeah, it's been really great, and I feel like Airbnb is a place where I can develop professionally even further. And I've got a really good support team there. And this is not an advertisement for Airbnb, but of course I cannot remove my inherent bias, as it were. So I'm pretty pumped, I guess is what I'm saying. but it was not without arriving here was not without the journey, right? That old phrase that it's not the destination that's truly meaningful. It's the journey to get there. Something like that anyway. Easier said than done, because if you're goal oriented and motivated and driven, that's kind of what keeps the wheels turning, is heading toward that finish line. But again, being able to look around and enjoy it and reflect on it. So to kind of bring it full circle, I think from a career standpoint, that's kind of a snapshot of what's happened for me. Is I was doing something really cool for Zoom Care, and the market and the business dictated that things needed to change there. So that means that all the people attached to that have to change too. So it was a growing experience, and job searching sucks. I highly advise to network. In fact, that's the main reason I got the job at Airbnb. It wasn't because I have an amazing resume. Excuse me. It was because I had a referral. I knew someone who works there, and they put my name in the hat, and I'm sure that helped, right? It's not like I it's not like I have stick figures drawn on my resume. Like it's a decent resume, but it's not for sure the only thing that got me in there. So that's my unsolicited advice. If you do find yourself in a similar position, just know that there are things out there, and it's going to take effort, and it's going to take perseverance and consistency and looking for that. But for sure, reach out and meet people as best you can, and get to know them, because we're social animals, and we like to be connected to people pretty closely, and that doesn't forego the job search process. Despite all the online services and things that are out there to help you, ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn and all these fun things. It really comes down to personal connection means the most, from what I've experienced, which isn't a ton, but that's what I want to pass along to you. So kind of spilling over into my personal bucket, if you will. And again, I'm probably going to be bouncing all over the place here, but when I got the news about Zoom Care, and I was having to process through that and learn a new job role, and getting frustrated about not finding a job and just how long it's taking, I let that frustration, and that's not the only thing, but that was like a big factor for me. I let that kind of get to me and just like sink in and just fester. I'm from the Midwest, so that's what we do with negative feelings. We just shove them down like to a hot white ball of rage. You listeners can't see, but starting from my diaphragm and just shoving it down. So I think that's kind of my nature to do that. But as therapists would probably tell you, that's very unhelpful. My girlfriend being one of those people. But it's what happened. And it started to impact my relationships, from my work relationships to my relationship with Sarah, my girlfriend. And, for any of you out there who have gone through this, it's one of those things that can creep up on you, and you don't see the signs clearly. And then, X amount of months later, one or both of the parties of the relationship is like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, we are unhappy, like something's going on. So, that's what happened to me. And it happened with someone I worked with, and I didn't handle it as well as I could have. I got bitter, and I let the frustration take over, like I said, and I didn't treat the person as I should have. And it took me a while to really reconcile that and get to the point where I just had to, call myself out and really hash out what was going on, and eventually bring that to her and really just lay it all out there on the table, which is an uncomfortable conversation for sure, especially when you have, a full relationship with somebody, and it kind of starts to turn a little sour. It's not the easiest conversation to have, but it's a good growth opportunity for me as an individual, for most people probably. So to go through it, and then like once you have the conversation and whatever that other person said, thankfully the person I was talking to was very receptive and thankful. You know, obviously doesn't always go that way, but it can be very rewarding and cathartic to more or less like overcome your obstacles and sort of feed. I have this tattoo on my leg that's two wolves. Mine is an interpretation of this saying, you're going to feed the good wolf or the bad wolf, which one wins, and it's the one that you feed. Mine are boxing, as it's tattooed on my leg, but it feels good when you feed the good wolf and you know that you've not been doing that. You've been feeding the bad wolf, and he's been winning, and it just feels like shit, and you just kind of stuck in this routine that you continue to do it. So when you're able to really make better decisions and make better choices and do the best that you can do, and I'm saying all this as you, but I mean me, it's really rewarding. And I was able to walk away from that work, or not walk away from. I was able to finish that conversation and with that person and have it end very well, and with a clear understanding that like, look, I've acted like an idiot and I'm really sorry, and this is not a reflection of how I feel about our relationship. And, I still value and respect you, and I think you're awesome. And, please forgive me. So, that worked for me. Maybe it can work for you if you ever find yourself in that position. But I guess a bigger overarching theme is that, you can I let frustration creep up on me, and it can impact your relationship. So if you feel like that's happening to you, maybe it's time to pull back a little bit, meditate, or go for a run, or whatever it is that helps you sort of take a look inward and, give yourself a gut check, because it can be very helpful. Albeit uncomfortable sometimes, it can still be very helpful. And so that was my work relationship. My personal relationship with Sarah, it also affected. When one person's not happy in a relationship, that usually impacts the other person, unless they're just amazingly resilient. But most of the time, it impacts the other person, especially if you're romantically involved. And, it got to the point where we just had to have, again, a very clear conversation and try and figure out what we needed to do. We went for like a 9-month stretch where we didn't have any days off together, and no weekends. So we pretty much all last year, all of 2016, and 16 into 17, like we didn't really take any vacations. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do much fun stuff. And that sounds really shitty to say, but I mean, it's just what happened. And, that coupled with the work situation, it just got tough. And again, it's one of those things that you realize, once you're able to take your blinders off, this episode is just peppered with cliches, but once you're able to take those blinders off and really see what's going on, it's quite the wake-up call. And it takes a lot of humility, and it takes a lot of ownership and accountability for what's been happening to call that out, call yourself out on it, and really have that open line of communication with the other person, because that honestly is what you need at that point. Is you need to understand where you are individually. I needed to understand what the fuck was happening with me, and I needed to also understand what impact that was having on Sarah and what was happening with her, and then collectively how we can bring those two pieces together and work on the us, air quotes, the us piece of our relationship, and focus on moving that forward. And it's gotten better. It's definitely gotten better. We have time now together. I've made a career change. She's made a couple career changes. So all these things fit in. It's not just a matter of willpower and I'm going to choose to be happy every day. Like that is a piece of it, but you have to be realistic about what goes into what ingredients make that happiness pie. I don't know where the hell that came from. What ingredients go into that, because they're undeniable, right? Like work, health, all these things that comprise who we are as people, and have an effect and an impact on our mindset and our thought processes. That's all part of it. So it's important, if you find yourself in a position like that, as I did, to really consider all those factors as best you can. Ask for advice. If you look up to people, have a mentor, parents, friends, whatever it is, like, bounce the situation off of them. And, the likelihood is they're not going to solve your problem. They're not going to like give you this one hit solution that's going to fix everything, but they may say one thing that gets you to think about an aspect of it differently that, can cascade into other things, or you just gather those little bits and pieces from your network. But yeah, lean on your support network. Look around, see what you've got available, and really lean on it whenever you need to. And then, conversely, if you're part of someone else's support network, which we pretty much all are, parts of multiple support networks, if you really think about it, when someone else is in need and they reach out to you, just, give them the best you can. You think through it and give them, just speak to who they are and your relationship with that person, and maybe you'll be able to return the favor somehow. Boy, I feel like I'm kind of rambling on that, but anyway, I had let frustration kind of get to me and have a negative impact. And, it's not a trophy on the shelf. It's not a big shiny medal. I didn't go out and, it would be weird to think about it as an accomplishment, but it's certainly a formative experience in life. So, hopefully in sharing that with you all out there, that can, it maybe at the very least count as a somewhat mediocre story, but also, kind of some framework and some reference if you are in a similar situation, or find yourself in a similar situation, which we all will. And I'll probably be back in a somewhat familiar territory. It happens. It's what we do. Life's crazy. We make mistakes all the time, and all we can do is try and learn from them as best we can. So that's hopefully what I've done in that aspect of being 32. Quick drink break. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Check my notes here. Oh, yeah, right. So for those of you who've been listening to more episodes this year, you are somewhat familiar, but I've been into motorcycling for a long time. I've learned how to ride since when I was 15, so before I could even legally ride. And then I've had a motorcycle pretty much my entire life, aside from before I left for Portland when I moved here, and then about 3 years after, 2.5 years after. So this past summer, is when I got back into motorcycling. Excuse me. Is when I got back into motorcycling. So last fall, I bought a motorcycle, but being fall into winter, and I'm a fair weather rider, I didn't really get to ride it. So this spring, and by spring I mean like May here in Portland, when the weather finally started to clear up a little bit, is when I first was able to start riding, and I loved it. I got a Triumph Daytona 675, which is a British middleweight sport bike. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. It's a sport bike. It's fun. And I was able to ride that and explore some really cool places in Oregon. I don't know. I was probably riding that for 4-ish months, something like that. And unfortunately, I had a crash. I hit some gravel on a road that I didn't see, and the bike slid out from under me. Thankfully, I was all geared up, and I was fine. The bike was not, and insurance helped take care of that for me. So, not that far into motorcycling, I already had a bit of a snafu, but as the old adage goes, my vocabulary is apparently very poor. All I can do is rely on these cliches. for this episode. But as the adage goes, if you fall off the horse, you've got to get back on. So I was at that point having to have found a motorcycle on Craigslist. I was very skilled, I guess you could say, in finding one. And I found another motorcycle and bought another one within a month. And not just another one, it was actually the same model, a few years newer, with about a tenth of the mileage at about $1,000 less than what it costs. So I pretty much hit the jackpot in terms of used motorcycles go. So I got another Triumph Daytona 675 special edition. It was white, blue paint on the frame. Really great bike. And I mean, it was more or less the same bike, but super fun. And again, I was able to take that out and ride, I guess, for a couple months after that. And after I had gone out on the last planned ride of the season, I don't have a garage where I live, so it was parked out on the street, on stands, under a cover, and literally the last ride of the season, get home, park it for the night. The next morning I go out, and it's gone. The bike is gone, the stands are gone. They left the cover, thankfully, but it was stolen off of the street, which is a huge bummer. Never had a vehicle stolen before. In terms of the event itself, I suppose it's relatively painless because you just wake up and it's gone. No one gets hurt, really. But, it's still a bummer, and it's still something to have to deal with. So another insurance process, this just got resolved last week, but another couple months later, working with the insurance company and the police department and all that jazz, I was able to get that paid for. So within the span of less than a year, I was into and then now back out of motorcycling, having gone through 2 bikes, which, I don't know what the universe is trying to say something to me. I suppose I'll listen for now because I'm still living in the same place, don't have a storage space for it. So I've not chosen to go out and try and find another motorcycle. Also, it's December and it's cold as fuck right now, and rainy, so I'm not going to be riding it anytime soon anyway. So for the time being, I'm on a motorcycle hiatus once again. The rough plan is that I will try and find a place to live where we can, fingers crossed, hopefully have a garage so I can store it safely and work on it and whatever, have proper space for it. And then at that point, try and find another bike because I love motorcycling. It's one of my passions in life. So I certainly would love to get back into it. So if you're motorcycling and you come across some issues, you crash or it gets stolen, it can be worked through. You can find solutions and move forward from there. Gosh, it sounds like that's kind of my theme for this year. I hate for it to sound like such a bummer year, but it's really like I feel like the theme is like I've made mistakes and I'm trying to learn and moving forward, and it is a positive thing. It's good, but I guess I just want to call that out because I feel like I'm just hearing that in my own narrative as I'm saying this. So maybe in the moment here, that's my theme of 32 is you fuck up and you learn and you keep moving. Maybe that's the theme of every year though. What else did I do this year personally? I finally finished my chest tattoo. I have a big tattoo across my chest. Public service announcement, chest work really blows. Very painful in my opinion. So I don't recommend that spot, but if your heart's really into it, just be prepared that it's not going to be pleasant. But yeah, this process started, and it was 4 sessions total, each session being about an hour and a half. And my tattoo guy was mainly up in Seattle, but back and forth between Portland. And yeah, it took 4 sessions, took almost a year, but it's done and it's awesome. And it was, again, a good experience. The journey was fun, uncomfortable at times, but again, finally having it finished has been really cool. And I've made friends with the tattoo guy, Kyler Martz. He's fucking awesome. Go check him out on Instagram. His work. He's done a ton of shit outside of tattooing. Really, really great artist. If you ever see I'm gonna give you a plug, Kyler. If you see any of the Amazon treasure trucks, if you don't know what that means, look it up. But if you ever see one of those in your city, Kyler designed all the graphics for those across the country. So yeah, all the cool designs that's on plastered on the side of the Amazon treasure truck is one of Kyler's many pieces of work. But yeah, finished the chest tattoo, so that's done. These seem a little insignificant, but this is what I came up with. I'm also decided to grow my hair out again. I've got a little man knot thing on the top of my head, but I'm not keeping the sides and the back long because that was just way too annoying, and I had to wear a headband all the time. So I'm gonna see how that goes. Yeah, whatever. It's just hair. If it doesn't work out, cut it off, start over again. But yeah, I guess that's all in my personal bucket. Again, this is all kind of leading over into the big picture. Another area that I felt like was important to recap was just the podcast, Stay Curious Podcast. We've gone on for another year, 32. I started when I was 31, I think, yes. And I've carried it all the way through 32. I've been able to interview a lot of really cool guests. I've exposed, I don't even know, I should probably sit down and count. Oh gosh, I would say 6 or 7 new people to podcasting who've never been on a podcast before, which is really great for me because I'm not that far into this journey, and I know exactly what it's like to be in that seat of the first time podcaster. So I get it, and it's cool to like be there and sort of support and help them have a good experience. At least I hope so in the podcasting world. I've had some new additions. I've got a mobile setup where I can go and record pretty much anywhere. I've added a video component, as you guys will see on YouTube. I have recently gotten my on-air sign, so just legit as fuck. So yeah, it's been super cool, and I've also been like learning, self-teaching how to better edit the audio and video components of this podcast. And I don't use any fancy software. I have a Mac, and I use GarageBand and iMovie. So things I already had at my disposal, and just kind of, again, self-teaching and trying to learn how to best use those, and then create content and put it out there to better market and expose people to what we have going on here. Because that's part of the podcasting puzzle too. Is you can have an amazing concept and idea and talk to amazing people and have one of the best conversations that's ever been had. There's my cat, my podcast cat, Gus. He's over here on the couch. He's keeping me. There he is. He's keeping me company here. But if you don't know how to get that best conversation had out to people, then it's not going to be the most impactful that it can be. So, anyway, learning how to package and craft and create content to get out to other people. It's fun because that's kind of the way of the world now. By a lot of people's estimations. So it's fun to be part of that growth and learn how to do it, and just learn a new skill. It's pretty cool. So that's it, podcasting, and I plan to keep going. I kind of podcasting goal for since the theme of the show is my birth years, podcasting goal for 33 is to continue to have more regular shows, hopefully twice a month, and get more sponsors for the show, get more exposure, grow the network, just continue to share with more people, and see where it takes me. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that I'm able to continue it for another year. Next bucket, wellness. So you guys know that I'm super into wellness. It's another passion of mine. I'm also I've been doing personal training for a long time. Excuse me, coffee break. There's probably going to be a lot of echo in this audio, so forgive me. I'll use my aforementioned editing skills to do the best I can. But I've got this video set up here with my custom made Pendleton chair here and my on-air sign, and my voice is projecting out into this big open space. So forgive me if there's a lot of echo. But my wellness buckets. Back to, again, it all ties in, but back to sort of career and personal frustration and how that affected me. Surprise, surprise, that affects most areas of your life. When you find yourself not in your best mind space and making the best decisions that you can. But wellness actually got pushed off of my top priority list. Wellness is certainly not just about physical shape and like the state of your meat wagon, but this is like the least in shape I've been, 32 for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and it's all relative, right? I'm saying that's for me, but I was aware of it and I knew it, and I just couldn't get a good rhythm and sort of get myself back into a place where I was committed to it. And I wanted to dedicate the time and the effort that it takes in order to really be at my best or where I want to be. Because you don't always have to be at your best in terms of anything, I guess, but fitness included. It's you don't have to look however you want to look, and that's not always the goal. You can set your goal wherever you want it to be, but I think more importantly is you want to feel your best, because when you feel your best, as research has shown, you perform at your best in other areas of your life. So anyway, I'm rambling on about that. My physical wellness got pushed off my priority list, and it was irritating. It's one of those perpetual cycles where you know that you're not where you need to be, but then you're bummed out because you're not there, and then that prevents you from working out or doing what you need to do to get to that place. So again, it's one of those things where you really have to have an honest conversation with yourself and really push through it every day. And it's an ongoing practice, right? It's not a one and done type thing. Like, all right, Kellin, this is what we're going to do. This is the game plan. Let's draw it all up. Wow, really dropped my Midwestern there. And let's execute this. Okay, break. See you again next year. 34. Fucking hell. See you again next year. Okay, it's an everyday thing. Most days, if you are active, you're gonna feel a little bit of resistance. If that's wellness, if that's whatever sort of practice you have in life, that's part of the. That's part of the beauty of it, really, is because you have to overcome that, and that it's going to take effort, and how good you feel once you do. But anyway, I've decided to commit myself to getting back into my peak physical shape and maintaining that, and really experimenting and pushing my boundaries there, and seeing how that goes for me. Also, not having a regular part of the wellness thing, not having a regular routine that I was really dialed into. It wasn't utilizing movement as therapy as best I can. And for me, and again, it's not just my bro science opinion. Research has shown that movement, it helps you process and it helps release certain neurochemicals and endorphins and things that just make you feel better. And then, you take those good feelings and you apply them to your day that you're having, and you make slightly better choices or much better choices, and you repeat the next day. So I just wasn't tapping into that resource that I'd been utilizing, and growing for so long. And again, I think that only factors into those other areas that I was talking about. So it's important. It's important to me, and I think that I I sort of lost touch with how important it was, and was no longer committing to it the way I really need to. So, 33, I'm not fucking around. Okay, back on my wellness game. Gonna be stepping it up. Travel. What have I done traveling this year? I haven't done a ton of traveling, kind of like I said before. Half of this year didn't have weekends off together with my partner, so a little harder to do. But nonetheless, Sarah and I went to a fire tower. We rented a fire tower. And I've probably already said this before, but if anyone who's listening is like, what the fuck does that mean? The U.S. Forest Service has an entire network, mostly in the Pacific Northwestern-ish area, entire network of old fire towers that are no longer commissioned, that they don't use to spot fires, but they now use for recreational use. So they list them up for rent on the... I should really look up the website as much as I plug this. Recreation.gov, let's say. You should probably Google that, though, to be sure.